Okay, so this video is very short. I'm just talking about model import and how you can import your own models, not ones already built in by Space Teams. So far, all the models we have used have been built-in Space Teams models available for you to use. All we're going to do is change a couple lines of code in the JSON symconfig file that allows you to import another model instead of an already built-in model. So, very quick video. Okay, so if you are using Blender, which you don't have to be, you could use any CAD program you want. This applies to those CAD programs too. There's only two things I'm going to talk about. I'm going to assume you know how to use the CAD program you are using. Just make sure when you export that you export as a GLTF file. Other ones might work, but as far as Space Teams is concerned, GLTF is the best file format. It's going to work the best. So if you don't want to run into issues later, I'd recommend GLTF. And then with Blender specifically, with transform here, make sure that plus Y up is unchecked, because we don't want our rover or whatever you're importing as the axis is messed up. Space Teams is assuming Z is up. Whatever program you're using, make sure when you are exporting that your X, Y, and Z are in the correct plane, Z being up for Space Teams. And then go ahead and export, and you can use this model in the JSON that we're about to go through. Okay, I'm going to show you all what to do for model import. Make sure when you make your new file, I called mine a rover import JSON, make sure again is in this assets file that we set up. That way you can open it in Space Teams. So we're just going to take the exact same JSON that we took from Rover 2. So here's Rover 2 JSON, here's rover import. Like everything else is set up exactly the same. You don't need to change anything else. The only thing you need to do is scroll all the way down. We're all the way down in our entities under Data Manager, and we are looking at our rover. So in Rover 2, we talked about this is how we imported our rover. These lines of code here, starting at this yellow bracket actually. And we're going to compare that to what I did for a rover import. So look at the first part. Hashtag required, name, type, systems. Hashtag required, name, type, systems. I just changed the name. You could keep it the same name. It doesn't matter. It's the same name either way. So, or the name is just the name that you want. It doesn't matter. It's if you reference it in something else, it could matter. But for this purpose, I named it rover import. That could be rover 1 still. Type BP means blueprint. Leave that the same. They're both blueprint types. We're using a blueprint path. Systems, I just took the systems out because we don't need them. I'm just showing you how to do model import. You can still apply systems here though to your imported model. Okay, so now we have blueprint path. This is where things get different. So our blueprint path for the rover 2, which was the in-game rover that is Space Teams already has, was using this line of code. For rover import, for taking our own model, doesn't have to be a rover, anything you want to import, you need a blueprint path with this line of code. So just take from this video and put this in this in the description. There's a link to where you can find this all this whole block of code. So just copy that. Okay, so then this is also new. So this in rover 2, and we skip straight to dynamics. In rover import, there's a new section here we added called model import. Make sure there's a comma after these brackets as you're starting a new double pink bracket, as you can see here. Model import, scale 3D. This is just scaling your model. So however you export it from Blender or SolidWorks or whatever, this just scales it. So if you have it the right size exported from that from Blender or something, you're good. If you want to scale it, this is how you do that. And then path. Okay, so local, again, that means that it's within your assets folder. So if we take a look at our assets folder, this is what local is referencing. So I have local, and then I have Dimitri. Oh, I'm going to do that. Local and then Dimitri. So come into Dimitri here, and then I have Blender. So it's coming into Blender, and then I have Rover1 going into Rover1, and then I have rover1.glb. So it's this file right here. As you can see, it is in that file path. It is a GLTF file, and so that will take this Blender file that I put in this specific folder, and it will put it into Space Teams. So that's all you need to add to the system. Everything else is exactly the same. Okay, we're gonna run the sim now. User made sims. Rover import is what I named it. Confirm. Let it load. Okay, spectator, start simulation. Okay, we are loaded in. The rover is floating a little bit, but so might want to change my y-axis or height, but however it is there. So you can see the rover that we made in that Blender file is now on the moon. It's no textures though, so we will get to that and what we can change about it to add textures. Okay, one other thing that you'll probably have to do is texture import. And as you can see in the example that we just did, the rover comes in as not textured. So if y'all want to do texture import, there's a way to do that, and I'm going to hand this over to Alexander, who works for Space Teams as well, and he's going to explain to you how to do texture import. So if you want to put a texture on a model and then put it into Space Teams, there's just a couple extra lines of code to add, and he's also going to go through how he added a texture in Blender to a capsule. So just gives you a little extra information there if y'all are trying to add something like that. So, yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Space Teams texture import tutorial. My name is Alex Shane, and today we'll be going through just a couple of programs that we use in the Space Teams texture import workflow. First program we're in here is Blender. We have a little model of a capsule here. It has all default Space Teams materials on it right now, nothing custom. And the first thing we'll do is we'll add a custom material, because not everything that you'll ever have in your models is just plain metal or plastic or something like that. So let's add a little tag on this protruding element over here. And the way I'll do it, you don't have to do it this way, of course, but I'll do it by going into edit mode with tab and just duplicating this face over here, Shift D, and then I can move it around a bit, but I'm just going to snap it back to where it was with right click. And then I'm going to scale it down just a little bit, doesn't really matter how much. And then that was S, by the way, and then left click to confirm it. And then I can scale along its normal vector just to offset it a little bit from the surface, Alt S, and then just kind of move it away a little bit, and then left click or enter to confirm. You can see that was about 4 something millimeters. Okay, now we have where we want to put our tag. So let's add a material to it. We already have one here. It's convenient. Okay, let's call this tag 1. All right, and it's an image texture here. I already had that set up from before, but the way you do is basically click here. We can remove this just to show it again. Let's just add that image texture. And to select an image for it, right now it's blank, it's nothing. I'm going to hit open. And here I have a tag 1 image. Just double click that. Nothing happened. Why? Because the material is not applied. So make sure the face is selected. Currently it's M_radiator. Okay. Let's click on tag 1 and assign. Nothing happened, right? Well, something did happen, but it's a black square. Why? Because we are not, we're still on the old UV map for this. We haven't assigned a new UV map to tell it what the coordinates are. So let me move this out of the way and go to UV editing up here. And you can see this is where that face is on this tag image, right? So we want it to occupy the whole thing. So what we'll do for that is hit U to pull up the UV unwrapping menu, and we're just gonna unwrap. And you can see it kind of cuts off part of it. So what we can do is just either move it in the X direction if we want to keep the scale, or we can just move these vertices, hold shift to select multiple ones. We can just move them G, X, move them along the X direction there. If we want to scale it, I'm going to right click to get out of that. Let's just select all the vertices, G, X, and move them this way. We'll preserve kind of the aspect ratio of this image. Okay, so now we can see it popped up here. Great. Okay, let's go back to layout, and we can see the whole thing. So this is all still one model, but now it has an extra material on it called tag 1. Space Teams will not, by default, read this into it. It won't know what to do with it. It's not part of the default list of materials, which is totally fine because we have a procedure that we're going to go through for how to do this. So let me first export this. Go to export, and we'll export GLTF 2.0. Click that. There's already one in here. I'll overwrite that. Just go through the export properties here real quick. If you have the object selected, which we do, it's outlined in orange. We can say selected objects. That just limits the selection if you have a bunch of things in there. You can play around with these if you want, but that's probably the main one you want to use. Transform, don't click Y up. The Y axis is not up in here. It's a horizontal one. Don't do that. Then under data, mesh, if you have any modifiers that you have on your model, apply those so that they show up. That's about it. Obviously, UVs, normal maps, all that kind of stuff. You want that. Under material, make sure materials are set to export. That is just necessary to carry over the data of which faces carry which materials. And that's about it. So we'll hit export, and it's done. Okay, so now we'll move over to Visual Studio, or you could use Visual Studio Code or any text editor to edit a Space Teams simconfig file. So let's hop over to that. Okay, and now we're looking at our simconfig file. This is called entity editor test.json, right? It's just the one that I'm using. You put this in your own sim, but basically, we have a bunch of the usual stuff in here, like just the sim entity, the spectator that is going to fly around. We're going to control that to observe the model. So we can scroll past all of that stuff. And what matters is this entity loaded. This is how we load all these kind of like imported models in here. And now there's something new here. This has not been included in past versions, but now we have a materials parameter under model import. So previously it was just the scale and the path to it, which is right here. But now we have materials. So I've already set it up to have this tag 1 in here. And it's also going to have, right, that tag1.png texture. So this texture is going into the albedo, which just means color slot. And the rest are just there as examples. We didn't really do anything with them, but we'll just set it up this way. So what this does is it'll apply the image texture directly as you saw in Blender. Metallic will tell you if it's a metal or not. I set it up as being a metal 1, right? But we could just as easily make it also not a vector. We could just say 0.0, and that's going to make it a non-metal, okay? Roughness, this could also be a color texture of some kind, representing the roughness of it. It'll be a black and white image, but yeah, we don't have one, so we can specify just a vector, or we could also just as easily say scalar. 0.8, range of 0 to 1, right? 0.8 is pretty rough, so it's not going to look glossy at all. The gloss parameter here is just the inverse of roughness. It's 1 minus the roughness, but you don't need to put it in. If both exist, it'll prioritize roughness and it won't even use gloss. But sometimes you're not provided with a gloss map for a very complex custom material. So if that's the case, yeah, Just basically use whichever one you have of these. If both are in there, it'll use roughness. It'll ignore gloss entirely. For the normal map, you can use, again, a texture asset of some kind. If I had a tag1 normal.png, that's where I would put it. But I don't have that, so I'm just going to use this is 001 vector. And this one does have to be a vector because a normal map is, it has to be a color map. And then emissive, you can make it emit light. Typically, most textures, like most decals, like the kind of tags that we're doing, that will not have any emissive. But if you have a map for it, put it in there with the same kind of format as albedo here. And that's about it. So now let's see this in action in Space Teams. Okay, we're in Space Teams now, and let's go into our sim. Here's our entity editor test already selected, and let's get into the simulation. And here is the capsule, and you can see, let's fix that exposure real quick. You can see all the materials did import exactly as you'd expect. And now we have the tag, right? This is not, this image is not in Space Teams at all. It was imported at runtime, just as we told it to. And yeah, that's about all there is to importing images. You can create a material as complicated as you want, just by using all those maps. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
Okay, that is it for model import video. Hope everything worked out for you. If you have any questions or anything that you're not sure on, make sure to check out the description and click that link. We'll have information on this video in it, including one piece of information, a website link to a description of what a quaternion is, in case you don't know. A quaternion is how Space Teams defines rotation. So if you do your model import and it's not rotated the correct way, there is a way to change that, and that's with quaternion. So you'll see, you can see in the JSON there's a something under the model import under your your in entities in JSON, and there's an area that says rotation, and there's 4 numbers, and you can change those 4 numbers, and that's a quaternion. So click the link and look at that website and see if you can understand what a quaternion. If you already know what it is, you know how to edit it. If not, try looking through that website and researching it a little bit so that you can change the rotation of your object.